AI Realized, the podcast about everything that is new, now, and next for enterprise executives deploying AI. Hosted by myself, Christina Elwood, and my collaborator, David Yakubovich.
Our guests will share what's driving AI adoption, use cases, and business models for the data and AI economy.
Where the future is bright.
Welcome to AI Realized, the podcast for enterprise executives leading AI deployments. From tackling security, data, and operational challenges to navigating organizational transformation, AI deployment offers a unique opportunity to redesign organizations from the inside out. I'm Christina Elwood, your host for today's episode, and we're talking today with Deepti Srivastava, the CEO of Leopard AI. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Christina.
We're really glad to have you. I know you went from building Google Spanner, one of the most foundational databases in the world, to founding Leopard AI. What thread connects these two chapters of your career?
Yeah, first of all, I'm really excited to be here. I think this community is really actually at the forefront of adopting AI and realizing it. So it's really great to talk to people who are not just talking about it, but like doing it. Yeah, that's a really good question. I have been in data for about 2 decades. So that is the thread for me and always has been. I have always believed that data are the crown jewels of any enterprise. I've also been in enterprise data the whole time, right? So I have seen all these systems as building Spanner. And before that, I was a distributed systems kernel engineer. That's where I started my career at Oracle in the Oracle RAC database, building their locking and high availability infrastructure. So I've really seen stuff from the guts up, if that makes sense. If you think about it like 20 years ago or 15 years ago, especially, even now, but 15 years ago, Oracle RAC ran all enterprise databases, right? Like all of the enterprise data was on those systems. And so I saw it from the bottom up. And then when I moved to Google, I was the founding product lead for Spanner, which literally changed the game in how we think about data and data in the era of scale, which was what the internet and the last 10 years of like digital transformation have been. And as the data proliferates, what you figure out is, oh, governance is really important and access is really important. And like the liveness, the freshness of the data is really important. The correctness of data is really important. So cut to 23-ish, 24, when ChatGPT first came out and AI was no longer just like a side note or a bubble. Like for me, at least, even at that point, I was like, oh, this is real this time. And as a side note, like, Transformers were built at Google, and I happened to be there to see the original inception of them because some of that metadata was also on my product. And again, I saw that from the bottom up. But when you come out of it and look at the world top down, you're like, oh, there's going to be a new world. We now call that world the agentic world, but 18 months ago, it was just AI applications and AI, and what is that going to be? And in that world, I was like, oh, it's fun to talk about the weather with a chatbot, or it's fun to look up what's interesting out there, right? It's fun to do chatbot stuff, but really, in order to change the way people work, the way people interact with the world, AI has to be adopted into enterprises. And how do you do that? You have to connect the technology. I think of AI as a technology, right? It's part of the tech stack. I don't think of it as some thing that's going to take over. And I'm less worried about Terminator. I'm more worried about, as I say, where my order is for the thing I ordered. And so AI has to be adopted in the enterprise and has to connect to critical workflows. And that requires connecting to the crown jewels, which is structured operational data.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And Deepti, you remind me of one of the other evolutions that's happened in this process. When you started in the database world, everything was deterministic. It was all transactional.
Right.
And for a sort of novel use of technology or data at the time was messaging between systems and being able to. So we went from this very deterministic, reliable, accurate, critical, all of the things that are associated with it has to be perfect world, to a world where good enough was good enough. Right, this sort of vague world of what is the status of the data? At what state is the data? How old is it? Has it been written yet to the database? Things like that.
Yeah.
And that changed fundamentally how we use data at the very moment when unstructured data really started to explode. So when AI came onto the scene being steeped really in unstructured data, the databases that we were using in the enterprise for our transactional systems, which are 100% structured
And deterministic. Yeah.
and deterministic, need to meet in this world. And I know that's a place where you've spent a lot of time in this sort of AI meets structured business data while still embracing the unstructured, because a lot of our data now is in unstructured form in the enterprise. It's not all structured.
Yeah.
Some of that data has its own quality parameters to it. And just like in the old days of your early career, you're still connecting data to workflows to people.
That's right.
So that triangle is still something that needs to be dealt with. So what did you see at Google that most people in AI still haven't fully reckoned with?
I think it's not just about Google anymore. I will be honest with you, in this new world, there is anything you knew, you have to throw away. I think that's my insight number one, right? But going back to a couple of things you said, number one, not only do we move to an unstructured, sort of not as deterministic world with the sort of data lakes and those kinds of things, right? With the proliferation data, like unstructured data had to be there in order to think about forms and about a bunch of HR text and things like that. So we definitely moved to a world of unstructured information. And that was okay because structured and unstructured were used for different purposes, and that was fine, right? With the AI revolution, what's really interesting is that AI can touch anything, or should touch. Like, the way to use it is the technology itself is not limited to just unstructured. Although obviously the most gains, the most aha moments were seen with unstructured information, as with chatbots and HR and legal, where it has been adopted really immensely, right? And really causing change in the way people behave and work and act, and bottom lines and top lines are changing there, right? But again, it has not, and I continue to say this, like, it has not been adopted in the central core of enterprises, because that core has decision making in it, and decision making is done deterministically. So the question really is, how do you take this LLM based, non-deterministic, probabilistic world and connect it to a very structured, very deterministic set of things and workflows that require deterministic answers, right? That's the gap that Snow Leopard is supposed to bridge. That's the gap that I want to make sure is bridged properly. Because, to give you a very quick example, you could do HR systems, but if you're trying to hire somebody, you need to know you do a background check. And Christina with a K and Christina with a CH and Christina with a C sort of can all, in a RAG type world, in a probabilistic world, right, map to the same thing. So you cannot have an answer of, maybe Christina has a criminal record. That is not acceptable. And this is one of the reasons why, this type of information and this like live, fresh information, we can't rely on yesterday's dump of criminal records, right? We have to have today, right now, what is her status, right? Background check. And for that, like, you need access to the correct systems at the correct time, right? With the correct data, right? This is the gap.
When did you have the realization that you just have to build this solution that is now Snow Leopard AI that solves this very problem that you're describing, that it connects the AI to the business data?
Yeah, being an enterprise product person, the first thing that happened when I saw ChatGPT break free in Anthropic and stuff is I went and talked to my enterprise friends, right, that run like VPs of engineering or CTOs or CIOs. And I was like, hey, how are you adopting AI? And they all talked about, HR systems and maybe support for certain types of workloads, etc. But every time there was like this, but we don't know how to use it for like truly like revolutionary workloads yet. And I was like, why not? And then they were like, how do you connect this probabilistic LLM to, I need real answers right now. Like, my leadership needs decision-making capability on perfect data, to your point earlier. And that's just not available. It's dumps, it's transformed stuff into warehouses. I cannot make decisions based on that. And that was when I was like, oh, this requires not just LLMs and AI knowledge and not just systems knowledge and how to build these predictable, deterministic, strong systems. It requires a marriage of both.
So are you building a layer on top of the data that is doing the solving the gap? Is that what think about Snow Leopard AI?
That's a great way to put it. Yeah. So the idea here is that Snow Leopard sits in between your AI agents and your data, like specifically your structured data. So think SQL databases, APIs, Shopify or Salesforce or things like that. And we are responsible. Snow Leopard becomes the data control plane where it'll fetch the data for you based on what the agent is looking for, right? So the idea becomes that you do not have to think about where should the data come from? How do I make sure that it's accurate? How do I make sure that it's timely? Like that stuff is left to Snow Leopard, and you build your agent and think about how to build the agent correctly, right? Because we have to be intentional about how we build these agents in this new world.
I see. Okay. And so what's a sort of perfect use case for your technology?
Anybody who's building an AI agent that requires SQL databases or structured information that is, critical for decision making. So live data from the right source to make the right decision.
Sounds like things like transactions. It sounds like things like purchases or
that's good. Yeah. If you're building a support, like a truly live support agent or just-in-time resource planning or things from there all the way to I need to make purchasing, hiring, those kinds of decisions that I have to be based on what's happening in my CRM system right now, what's happening in my order management system right now, what's happening in my customer system right now, and most importantly, what's happening in my revenue system right now. So fintech and AI support tech are the sort of top adopters of this technology right now because they seem to have the most need for, as you said, transactional or live real-time data, right? But I think it applies to everyone.
Yeah, it sounds like data-wise, it's completely agnostic in terms of the structured database it sits on top of. Yeah. But from an agent point of view, are there certain stacks that you support and certain?
So this is, I feel we have to be the place where developers don't have to worry about what is supported or what is not. We're in the middle, right? So we will allow you, we're agnostic to that too. So we're agnostic to the agent layer and we're agnostic to the data layer. In fact, we have partnerships and live examples, even on our website. If you go today, like on the docs page, we have examples of how you build an agent with Snow Leopard, with Chain, with MCP, Fast MCP, with Pydantic, with Vercel. We have a live working example with Agentuity and this thing called AGUI, which is a UI front end for agents. So we want to reduce the friction for developers right now, AI developers right now, from building agents. Because they have, in the previous world, in the SaaS world, right? Like it was the same thing where you have a bunch of tools and so you have to choose which tool is right for you. Then you have a bunch of like things around data pipelines, data lake houses, data like oceans that you have to create and maintain and continuously spend 80% of your engineering time trying to build and maintain these things. What if you just erased all of that and said, build your agent, talk to Snow Leopard. Snow Leopard takes the headache of routing the data intelligently in real time, like making sure that you get the right data that is accurate out of the box. Like accuracy out of the box is a huge challenge today for agent builders, even with MCP. MCP is just a connector layer.
Yeah, it doesn't do anything with that accuracy.
That's right. And so complex engineering, those kinds of things are actually the real friction point, the boring problems. I were to say it that way, because these are boring problems. Build the pipeline, dump data, transform it. And these, by the way, boring problems take 80% of your budget, 80% of your time, and are a huge problem of agents don't make it from POC to production. I wonder why.
This is, of course, the story of middleware through every era of technology. So you're like the new middleware, which is fantastic. If we're looking forward to the next couple years, what do you think are going to be the innovations in the use of agents, and therefore, what does the middleware layer need to be able to do?
Yeah, I hate the term middleware because everybody has these like negative connotations around it. But I think that is exactly right. Like we do actually need a middleware that is simplification oriented, not complexity oriented. I think that's really important. And I think again, in the age of AI, and the way that things are moving so quickly, first of all, anybody that's making predictions on what the world is going to be like, in my opinion, is wrong. Because as the words leave my mouth, like things have already changed, right? And so in that kind of lightning speed world, the only thing you know is you need sort of two things. You need to make sure that you have ROI and you have the right set of work done in order to get the right outcomes for your business and for your customers. That is what needs to be focused on, which means you have to build your agents intentionally. I think this is the time where you have to think through not just let's take the old world workflow and transform it into AI, as we did with digital transformation and SaaS. That was the old world. In the new world, I think it is a great opportunity for enterprises to rethink what workflows do we really need to even have anymore.
Yeah, there's certainly that for sure. But I also think it's an opportunity to rethink how we're operating because we built silos for reliability and accountability. And now we have the opportunity to build systems that are cross those silos, cross functional, and are able to pull our silos closer together and create a smoother, instead of a flattened out organization, a more cross, both vertical and horizontally oriented organization. And I think that's an exciting thing to think about how we would instantiate that technically and how we will look organizationally.
Thank you for bringing that up. Actually, that's one of the key things that I care about with Leopard, right? This is why middleware, like the way you describe it, is actually really important in this new world to be thought of in the new way, because data silos have been a part of life and a fact of life. And the way people are trying to say you should solve it is dumping everything into one place. And I don't think that's the right way, respectfully, right? I think those data silos can exist where they are because they will always exist. There's always a data source of some variety that some team has that you're never going to even know about. So what if the middle agent, right, the middleware allowed you to, especially the data control plane, as I call it, allowed you to fetch data from anywhere and for you to connect to the control plane from anywhere, right? You're agnostic to the protocols, the like, all of that stuff, right? APIs, languages, doesn't matter. And your agent can always, through the control plane, access the data that it needs to make the right forward progress. That is the world I want to be in, right? Where your data silos are no longer a topic of discussion, but what are you doing with the data is the topic of discussion. How are you using it to make forward progress for the business, for the individual, for the whatever it is? That's the key to unlocking the value that we all think AI can provide. I'm excited about that.
I agree. And the ROI as well, right?
Yeah.
So who is someone in the AI space whose work you're quietly watching closely right now?
There are actually multiple people. One of them is this, I think he's the deputy CTO at Microsoft. He has a team that is basically building tools around agentic coding so that you could just fully, like, engineers no longer have to code, right? But it's building skills around Claude and those kinds of things. His name is Sam Shalise. Hopefully didn't butcher his names. And he has these things called Sunday letters. He writes a blog all about where AI is today from an agentic coding and software engineering perspective. And I think that's a really great one to follow. But there's a bunch of people around me that are doing this, like that are working on making agentic coding just fully automated, right? Like where you don't even, like where you care about outcomes versus like code and code reviews and code writing. Like they've fully adopted AI. They're building fully AI agent companies, like not, and just seeing what that looks like and what that means. And they are the very cutting edge of what AI can do. But it's very fun. I don't know if I can. There's a team at Strong DM that sort of released a blog post recently about what they have been doing. There's a bunch of people who are in stealth mode that I just haven't.
No problem too. That sometimes these companies are in stealth mode and you can't actually say who they are.
Yeah, but it's fun to watch them. And I will call out one thing, which is, all these people trying to like figure out what AI and the nature of work in the new world looks like, which I think is cool because they're just open-ended doing research, and it's really cool to like practical research, and it's cool to see them. And I adopt some of their tried and tested methods in our team as well. So there's that on the one end. On the other end, like there's enterprises and security and governance, and that's not where enterprises are. And I want to fully acknowledge that. And I want to say, I don't think you can jump from where we are today for the majority of the world to where these people are. And I think anybody that tries to tell you should do that, I think just doesn't understand the reality. So the real question for me, and what I think about a lot, is how do I take what's happening with AI today and help enterprises adopt AI more effectively throughout their organization? Everybody can't do greenfield, and so how do you do this AI transformation in a realistic way?
That brings another question to mind for me, Deepti. As a leader of a AI organization, but also a leader in the community, what do you find is your defining leadership skill in this particular era?
Yeah, there's a saying that wartime generals are different from the peacetime generals or something like that. I certainly, the metaphor may not be the most apt right now, but I think the key skill I feel is both necessary, and I happen to be that way personality wise, is just adaptability. You have to have an open mind, and you have to get rid of all the strings and all the baggage and all the knowledge. Like, the knowledge is really helpful in how you how you shape the world in your head, and how you therefore shape the world through your actions, right? We don't want to keep making the same mistakes. But at the same time, like, adaptability and just open-mindedness is key. Like, I think there's a lot of people who are afraid. There are a lot of people who are confused, because it is a confusing and therefore fearful time. But at the same time, I think I am optimistic, because any technology, to me, right, any change in technology or any platform shift has the potential to be very positive or otherwise. And it is on us as people, as leaders, as societies, as communities, to choose how you use that technology in service, in my opinion, in service of us, in service of humanity.
Yeah, AI realized is fostering AI adoption, responsible AI adoption. So we obviously buy into that same premise and are optimists ourselves. Thank you so much, Deepti, for joining us today. I really appreciate it. We have been talking with Deepti Srivastava, who is the CEO and founder of Snow Leopard AI. And thank you for joining me today on AI Realized.
Thank you so much for having me. I love this community, and I really honestly enjoyed the conversation so much. Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you.